Welcome back to the Law News Network. I'm your host, Beth Karras. For the next half hour, 40 minutes or so, then Aaron Keller will be in the host chair. He's running a few minutes late, but I am delighted now to finally speak to my guest who has been sitting here patiently in the studio for an hour, Ken Belkin, criminal defense attorney, frequent guest on Law News. So the judge just addressed the media. I don't know if you heard that. Well, and the public. And he read from a rule. This is a guy who really follows the rules closely, as a judge should. But
Yeah,
he lets you know where it's coming from also. And he said the public, ergo the media, has a right to look at exhibits. But I'm ordering you not to photograph or video record the diagram from the autopsy report. There's just a diagram of where the wounds are, or the photographs. I can understand the photographs, but at least whoever's there can observe them and then report on them. I was in that position often regarding photos, but I've really never seen a judge say you can't have a copy of the diagram. Autopsy reports are often public. The diagram is simply, it's just an outline of the body, and then you see where the shots were or the stab wounds were, and it's pretty common to see. I'm a little surprised at that ruling.
Yeah. Well, look, he probably just wants to keep the evidence just sort of, in the courtroom, so to speak, trying to maintain a tight leash over the proceedings.
I don't know, though. Earlier in the day, long before you arrived, I had just arrived, the judge also was upset with the media because apparently somebody came in with a camera and started setting up their camera during the middle of testimony. Time out, the judge, I don't know if he let the jury go, but I walked in during that and he's like, you cannot disrupt these proceedings, and, told him follow the rule and you have to abide by the rule or you're going to leave. But there's a camera internationally and a camera nationally, something like that. I know BBC is there, which I find very interesting. So,
well, look, it's a real rookie mistake to be making noise while the court's on the record.
Yeah.
I mean, I got to tell you, the first couple of times I ever appeared in court, I probably was admonished for making that same mistake. But the record, it's sacrosanct, and you don't want to disturb the record. Court reporters are very diligently typing down everything that's being said, and they're trying to maintain and keep a good record.
And you don't want to distract the jury too. But speaking of first time in court, I remember my first trial was like a B misdemeanor. I didn't know when to stand up to object. I didn't know. It was really trial by fire there. Oh my God, literally, no pun intended. Anyway, this is an insanity defense case.
Yes.
The battle begins when the defense starts, right? Because they put on their psychiatric expert and then the state rebuts it.
Well, battle begins a little bit before that in the opening argument. Defense attorneys really got to prep the jury for what they're to hear. There's a lot of research that indicates juries do not typically believe the insanity defense. In this case, I think it's even less believable.
Why?
Well, the only mental health issue really that comes in play here is that this guy might be on the autism spectrum, might suffer from Asperger's. These are diseases that, in my opinion, and probably, the psychological community's opinion, don't warp reality to the point where you would not be able to tell the difference between right and wrong and understand that taking another human life is wrong. It's a stretch.
There's some state, I think it's Michigan, there could be others, that has an alternative verdict. You have guilty, not guilty always.
Yeah.
Then in a case where there's an insanity defense, you have not guilty by reason of insanity. Then there's another one, guilty but mentally ill. Have you ever seen that? I mean, we don't have that here in New York.
I've not seen that in New York, but Asperger's really, it's not such, look, it's terrible if you're afflicted by it. I don't mean to diminish it, but people who are afflicted by it, they're not going to be able to murder people and use it as cover.
Oh, yeah.
Not
you could be a high-functioning member of society and, have a very normal life, with Asperger's. And he took actions that show that he absolutely knew right from wrong.
Oh, yeah. He set up a perimeter, lit his car on fire, set incendiary devices to try and impede law enforcement's ability to respond. And, I guess essentially to try and evade capture. These are very calculated steps.
Okay, so why is this case even going to trial?
Well, my hunch is, as with all cases when they go to trial, there was a breakdown in the negotiation process, in the plea bargain process, and they couldn't come to an accommodation or a reason. Maybe they didn't make an offer that was acceptable to the defense.
But
maybe they didn't make an offer at all, and they just said, you're going to do this time, and you're going to plead guilty to the charges as outlined.
Of course, right. So a defendant always has a right to plead guilty. I mean, it's one of his or her decisions to go to trial or plead to the indictment.
Yeah.
I guess even if it's a long shot, because it's the only defense there is here. It's the only defense, right? I mean, he's really caught red-handed.
Yeah, I mean he had a GoPro video camera.
There's no other defense. So maybe jurors will, or some jurors will find that the evidence of mental illness, whatever it is, mitigates. And so it'll be a lesser crime and a lesser sentence. I don't know. I do think that mental illness in some cases can be a mitigator, even if it's the defense doesn't work.
Yeah. I mean, I think all this stuff probably, at least if I was his attorney, I would have brought all this stuff up in the plea bargaining process to try and mitigate, the potential consequences that he's going to endure. Look, besides this one glaring incident, this guy led a very well-respected life. He was a member of the United States Coast Guard for several years. He served this country proudly, bravely, more than what a lot of people do in their day-to-day life for society. But, he did have this problem, and clearly these are not the actions of a normal, rational thinking human being. But I think there's enough evidence to say he probably did understand his actions were wrong, and he probably did understand, there were going to be consequences. Otherwise, why attempt to impede law enforcement's ability to respond? Law enforcement doesn't respond unless something wrong is happening.
So the wild card in any criminal trial is whether or not the defendant is going to take the stand. I mean, we all want to hear from a defendant, especially in cases where, like say a self-defense case, it just cries out for a defendant to testify. But isn't it in an insanity case when this psychiatrist for the defense gets on the stand and talks about his or her evaluation of the defendant and diagnosis and things that the defendant said, isn't it a way to kind of avoid putting your client on the stand? I'm not sure how much comes out, but I think quite a bit can come out about the defense.
Yeah, I mean, look, they're going to get into, they're going to put an expert on that's going to say, look, due to his condition, he really couldn't appreciate the nature of his actions, and that they might be considered wrong or illegal or terrible or horrible, whatever they want to say. But at the end of the day, I think this is a tough one, because putting this guy on the stand, it's going to open the door on cross-examination for all sorts of things. They've got his interrogation by the police they can get him on. They've got this 250-page manifesto. You don't want a client writing a 250-page dissertation about
book.
Because the book is going to be analyzed by the prosecution, and they're going to delve into things he wrote to try and impeach his testimony. On the other hand, he's the only person that can say, for sure what was going through his mind on the date of the incident. And I think that testimony could be useful in mounting the insanity defense.
But can the psychiatrist testify to his or her conversation with the defendant? I mean, I've seen what to me it seems to be self-serving testimony where a defendant is not on the stand coming through a psychiatric expert, but it might be.
Look,
it might be only if they plan to call them. They can come in initially.
He can go through, his diagnosis of him. He can explain what someone with this diagnosis typically experiences, how it affects their life, how it could affect their judgment with respect to certain situations, like the one he's in right now. But really, the only person that can say what was going on in this guy's mind the day of the incident is this guy. But look, there's a lot of material to cross-examine him on.
He's not going to testify.
Conventional wisdom, and I think I said this yesterday, is with defense attorneys that you try not to put your client on the stand most of the time. Now, a lot of the research that's come out more recently suggests that even though jurors are instructed that no one has to testify, defendant does not have to testify, and you are not to hold their lack of testifying against them, the research suggests that jurors still do hold it against them. And it makes sense. Someone's accused of a crime, we want to hear what they have to say. I know
you're
I
innocent,
do.
get up there and tell us you're innocent.
Exactly. And for the better part of the last century, the consensus was don't put your client on the stand. I can tell you this, I've had success putting my client on the stand, and I think it's useful, and I think defense attorneys should maybe revisit that proposition.
I know some defense attorneys outside of New York who sort of buck the conventional wisdom and have been very successful that way. So, yeah, well, we'll see. I don't know that this is the case to buck it.
No, the 250-page dissertation
Yeah, right.
leaves a lot of questions that beg to be asked.
Right, right. So we're on a lunch break right now. Court will resume at 2 o'clock Eastern Time, which is about 45 minutes, a little better from now. By the time court resumes, Aaron Keller will be in the anchor chair, but we're going to go back and look at a little bit of testimony from earlier today, and it's the continued police interview of Adrian Loya. So let's go listen to some of that, and when we come out of it, we'll talk a little bit more.
Yeah, they were using that.
Yeah, the original just like night, I've seen flares burn pretty hot and just get the car apart. My original plan was just to stop the car there.
But you didn't want to use, I mean, you brought a shotgun, you brought a pistol, you brought an AR-15, but you didn't want to use those on Lisa?
No.
So what was your original intention?
The weapons were, shotgun especially was where you just shot them out. Wasn't gonna,
And to enter the home?
right, that was
Two purposes.
You could lock them like that, or lock them the door. I saw, videos and things and movies, how vicious it looks, just explosion, sound, people rushing in. So I was like, I'll use that. And it looks like it's kind of guaranteed that it'll people.
Did you know where to go when you were in the home? How did you know that?
That was also weird. And then the website I used when I was looking for a home in Chesapeake. And it lists, homes, even after they've been sold or rented out or rented for a while. And you saw the advertisements for here's my house.
It's like a virtual
It's sort of like,
shutter.
take a picture of this wall, take a picture of that door.
So describe to us, when you were able to pull up this particular lease's address, what did it show you?
Nothing.
What
Nothing.
did it show?
Yeah, the website showed nothing for that address.
How were you able to determine that that was her address?
So I was looking at how the map looks, and saw that each of these little sections of the buildings is county hall underneath the place. There was there were setbacks. So I found the ones that looked like the same spot where hers was at, and some of those had figures still.
So I guess basically, you correct me if I'm wrong, so you put her name into Google, and it gave you the address of the one. Is that right? And then you went to Google Map, put that address there, and it showed you that address. And then you went from there. Excuse me, I know you had talked about the handcuffs, and you neglected to tell us that before. Is there anything else?
I told you about that.
Maybe you did, I don't recall.
Check your report.
Okay, yeah, we speak for some, right? Is there anything else, pieces that maybe that you didn't tell us or you forgot to tell us? I know you said when you went down back that you thought of.
I guess the knife display?
I'm sorry?
The knife display?
Well, that's what I wanted, because if you weren't, the shotguns for shock and awe, what are the pistol and the AR-15 for, if they're not for Lisa?
That was for engaging.
Plan B? Okay, not
No,
Plan B, but
Yeah,
the
firearms were for.
So I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, that's okay. So you go upstairs, and earlier you had said something kind of, before the mattress was flung at you, you had said something was weird or something was odd. What went wrong there? They weren't complying the way you thought they would?
Yeah,
It said something like that, because what was your main intention? You're not going to use a gun. How are you going to, as you had said earlier, remove her?
and I know from, I don't know what her training was like, for her career, as far as I've had training the person, delivering it, not like I guess like another victim or the law enforcement guys in the Coast Guard, hey, we need the body, just do all our stuff. So then I volunteer, and then they yell it, and I was like training, we go, okay, I gotta get down, and say get down, keep your hands together, fucking
Right.
just as training for that. And so I sort of expected, since they're posties, to
Slip into the train.
and then just be cussed to, secure in place, crazy movements, get your hands out of the way, get your, I did want to, I brought two sets of, your protection, set of inner and outside ear.
Yeah.
I want to put the outside ones on, and instead. Because I didn't want to hear any of the noises,
What noises?
anything that needs to be made.
What were you planning to
The
do?
original plan was to use a knife,
In what way?
just in straight to the heart. Nothing quick, fast.
Were you planning on, you've thought about this, were you planning on saying anything while you were doing that?
Yeah, I was telling her why, that not just, hey, we're not even kill you now, not even some word.
And what words have you picked for that moment?
It was mostly just, hey, remember me, if not, this is who I am, what we do. Here's just a little quick little recap of saying, hey, 3 years ago we met, a year later, assaulted me, and then a year later, I'm now from the villain somehow, what you do. I'm now the actual bad guy, I'm that bitch.
So, like proving her right, that you, is that what you're saying? That you are the actual bad guy?
Not proving it right, just saying it's looking creating at all. So all I wanted was, I guess, good stuff. I never want that. It's just, I do truly hate her. It's like,
Early on, did you want a relationship with her?
the very, 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 very beginning, I was attracted to her just as a, as a pretty girl, but I knew she was engaged, and
To a woman?
no, I didn't know this until 7 months later.
Oh,
So,
but that engagement was to a woman?
yes.
Okay.
But even if it was a woman or woman, do like out getting, it's already, even me, like I'm super single. I don't really like relationships, but I like her as a person. She started talking to me first. She talked to me all the time, and all the people I knew at the shop, she talked to me more about other things and not just normal work stuff. So I did like her as a friend person. She was really nice. Then she got married, and it got weird, where I was always getting in trouble somehow.
Right.
But
Some of it was just misinterpreted.
yeah, listen to stuff, but even then, I'm sorry, just where I am, I stay away until they come back and say, hey, Greg is not now. I'm not very good with parents, so obviously. So I just kind of wait till she was fine with me again and back up my stuff until that one time she really yelled at me and I stopped. Just a bunch of stuff went down and I was like, I'm not happy anymore. Then I got resolved, like a flip of a coin. It was everything that happened is gone. And then a week later, she invited me to her house.
And that's when the assault took place. And you said there was no intercourse? Do you mind describing exactly what happened? As far as, because it was a sexual assault, correct? She was drunk. Had you been drinking?
I had one drink, but it was very weak.
Do you normally drink?
Around that time, maybe twice, but not like heavily.
Had you been in any relationships while you were in Alaska?
No.
No girlfriends?
I had stopped watching nothing.
Stop it.
Happened to, trying to date.
What happened in 2009?
I just gave up. I realized it wasn't worth it. But in 2012, exactly, I learned about personality disorder. It's called schizoid. Even to me, it sound weird. I heard it in the Kanye West song, just the word schizoid. I didn't understand that. I just words. And eventually, it's like, holy crap, that's me. And I realized there's a definition right here, why not just accept it? And that actually made me feel pretty good because I had felt just a weirdness and socially in that person.
Yeah, there's an answer to your question.
So even then, I still want to have friends along. So even then, when she invited me over, like, hey, this is the first time she actually had me say, hey, come on over. Before it was just, events around the shop or a couple of, I had one game right in my house, there was a movie thing, we're all together. There's nothing, just me and her.
Right.
But at that point, I was treating her like, just one of the guys. And all the other guys, I hung out with them individually, with their lives, without their lives, just like them.
And this is a personal question. Were you sexually active before then?
2009 or?
No, at any point. I mean,
Well, yeah, when I was dating.
okay. So you had sex with women before. All right. And so what happened that night when you went over there?
That's military training. You don't. Number one, you don't go with another member's wife.
Right.
Not even just the military, it's just a basic, civilized thing. And there's also the transit. This is example number one in all the textbooks is drunk person, guy comes over, he's not drunk, takes advantage of the person, waves them, and then they go off and do whatever in that personality. I'm not that guy. So
Did she make that accusation?
I was scared of that accusation. Yeah.
You were scared of her, but did she make it?
No, that's the thing. I didn't find out until later on I gave the letter. She wouldn't even realize what she actually did. She knew something weird happened, but she didn't exactly know what she did.
So what did happen?
Well, she brought me over. I brought over a DVD set of The Simpsons, which I think I like them. She told me, bring some booze over. And I had a bottle of vodka from several, from that one game night we had at my place. It was never even opened. It was bought for something else too. So I brought that over, but even then I was like, this is not, this isn't even like a beer or something. So I brought that over. She opened the door with a little smile. She said my name clearly. There was no, slurred words, no wobbling or anything like that. She was Lisa, but she was like happy to be Lisa.
She'd already been drinking, you think? Is that what you
So
said?
yeah, she was not the normal at-work Lisa. She was, the very person that I could was kind of. So she invites me in, I show her the DVDs, and she's like, okay, fine. She grabs a ball, goes to the kitchen, and I kind of take my boots off, and then I follow her to the kitchen. She already has 2 wine glasses out, and she has a fork screwed through the bottle, and this is vodka thing, it's just a screw top. And she had already punched her way through it, and I was like, okay, it's a dollar. She's not all the way there. I tried to stop her. She's like, no. She finally pulled it off and she started pouring one whole wine glass. And I think it's not wine, it's vodka. She's like, oh, sorry, I guess it's vodka. No, this is wine.
Yeah.
And ow. So then, so just that one wine glass, she put ice in both of the things and she split it. We found some pineapples. And pineapples, use juice from this, split that, and that was the only drink I had, and that's the only drink I actually had when I was there. I don't know how she had beforehand. I did see a large, like, handle,
Yeah.
with a wild turkey patterns on the eyes and public patterns. So I don't know if you how much out of that or it's like she already just kind of got that feelings from there or whatever. So went back to the living room and she only has this, couch about this big and she sat, like this. So I thought, okay, it's already kind of weird. So I'll sit on the opposite side of this coffee table that was there. And I was sat on the ground. It was exactly comfortable. So I watched maybe the first half of the episode and I realized I'm going to sit on the couch because number one, I'm not going to do anything. Two, she's engaged, so she shouldn't do anything. And three, she's put back praying, so nothing but weird thoughts I've had right now should happen. So I told her, hey, I'm on the couch.
Well, were you having weird thoughts?
Just, even though it's just us, I can imagine, someone, why are you, why are you with her, or, why are you at this American's house?
Right.
Lifestyle.
But no, so not a weird thought sexually.
No, it was the connotation of it all.
Right, how it looked, the appearance, the perception. Sometimes that's reality.
And even then, we had just only made up for a week after a month of we even look at each other.
Right.
She could have had anybody else over. She was friends with everybody she got. So that's where I felt kind of weird that she might be of all people, and especially when she's drunk, which makes her make some decisions you wouldn't make, or you want to make, or you shouldn't, or
Right.
once you have a couple drinks, you start doing what you kind of want. So I kind of, saw that, but I was like, it just doesn't make sense. I have a couple drinks, I'm going down some weed. I'll have anything against it, but just flip the switch like that on a beer time. I don't think she told me she knew she was gay since she was, 4 years old or something. So I sat there, we finished the episode. I get up to go fill up my glass of water. And I come back, and I didn't really think much of it. So I sit on the couch, again, something about this big. You stick up all that side, take all this side. So our sides are kind of rubbing. That's what just finished. But then next episode goes on. She's kind of laughing, and it's like, it's a very weird. I'm just gonna laugh because I think I should be laughing. And then she'll make a moaning noise. And the way that it's set up, like I'm sitting here, she's sitting here, she's way up in that direction. It's a very weird angle. So I'm sitting against the corner to stay away from her, and just kind of block that. But I see just like a movement from my eye. I'm not trying to, also make weird fluid actually. But then I finally look, and she has one arm here on her side, and she has other hand going around circles on her vagina.
What's she wearing?
She had jeans on, but just over it.
All right.
So she's going around in a circle on that, and making one slot. So that's when I started stiffening up, like body-wise. I was just kind of, as far as like this, and then I was kind of really tightening up like this. She was there so often, and then she finally was kind of, in her hand, there's a crease in the couch between two cushions, and she just kind of stopped like this. And she was like, lean back and back and look at me. And, I still have to look at the TV that way, so I kind of see her, and it's just very, very weird. And then she takes her hand, she puts it out toward my face, like it's very weird. And then she picks her head, she leans in. I only took it as a kiss, but I'm still just sitting like this and just kind of staring.
That's sensitive.
Walk her now.
All right.
So then she goes in, she opens her eyes, and she's still just kind of like there, and floating. And I just went to the joke, I forget who it is. So we come home, they stick on her blonde little wife or something. She doesn't say a word, and she just goes back and sits. And she's there for a couple minutes. And she just jumps up and goes to the bathroom. And I don't hear anything. And I'm already freaking out. And this is where it starts to make.
Welcome back to the Law News Network. I'm your host, Beth Karras. Court's on a lunch break right now in the murder trial of Adrian Loya, former Coast Guard member who's accused of killing another member of the Coast Guard, a woman he was absolutely fixated with, who was married to another woman. He also injured the wife and a police officer. So he is facing a host of charges in a Barnstable, Massachusetts courtroom on Cape Cod. Court will resume in about a half an hour. Judge Gary Nickerson is a very punctual judge. I had the pleasure of covering a trial in his courtroom in the fall of 2006, and he is the same Gary Nickerson that I'm witnessing today in the courtroom. So I want to take a few minutes to talk to my guest, Ken Belkin, who's been in studio for the last hour and a half. Ken, criminal defense attorney, I wanted to ask you about what is very common in Massachusetts criminal cases, and that is taking the jury on a visit to the scene of the crime to have a look. It's very rare in my experience in New York to do that because it's very cumbersome. It's onerous on everybody to transport to a scene, take the time out from a case. Maybe it's harder logistically in a city like Manhattan, where both of us practice, compared to a more country spread out area. But they did that yesterday. The jury went on a little trip, a little field trip. I call it a jury view. I don't know what you call it, but I call it a jury view. And it is the norm, in my experience in covering Massachusetts cases, to do this. It's more often than not that they go to the scene, and I don't understand why you need to.
Look, a lot of strange things in this jurisdiction. They make the witnesses, while they're testifying, stand.
Well, that's a throwback to colonial days, and not every courtroom in Massachusetts does it, but this judge does it.
Certainly, it's a beautiful courtroom, I will say that. But look, I think it is useful, it is instructive to visit the crime scene when you're involved in a trial. I know for my purposes, every trial I've been involved with, I have visited the crime scene. Probably a couple of times.
Yeah, but you're the attorney, and I would do
Yes.
that too, because then it's in your head and you know how to ask witnesses the questions or cross-examine or whatever, because you got it in your head. But the jury, why is it
there is something useful. I believe that no matter what the crime scene may be, no matter how much maybe the location is not related to any of the facts in dispute, I think it's useful. I think you learn something from being there. I don't know what it is, but I've always learned something from every trip I've made to the scene, and I think it's useful for the jury to see it. I think in a case like this, I don't know how relevant it's going to be in swaying their verdict one way or the other. The evidence seems pretty strong against Mr. Loya. I just don't know. It seems like a waste of taxpayer money, to be honest.
I don't know if the jury sees the area where the perimeter was, and how he's trying to ambush the police. Does it show that he's nuts? I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. The condo, the location of the condo, I don't know if it's going to have any bearing on whether the insanity defense is tenable here. I think this guy made so many statements in his interrogation about his motive. He's got this 250-page manuscript. You've got the video footage from the GoPro. I know it wasn't a GoPro brand camera, but of the camera he was wearing. There's so much hard evidence here that I don't know that dragging the jury out there is really going to do anything for either side.
I mean, there's a reason why courts allow diagrams, photographs, videos of the scene to basically recreate it in the courtroom. And sometimes you can actually recreate things, in the courtroom, so you don't have to bring them to the scene. Anyway, I just wanted to gab a little bit about it because it amazes me that they do it all the time in Massachusetts, and they don't do it all the time in other jurisdictions.
Yeah, I've never seen it done in New York, at least in any case that I've been involved on.
I can't remember. I remember once, though, I had a drug case, and the defendant was challenging a big amount of drugs in the inner pocket of the car. It was a drug possession, but it was a big amount.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a view, but I had the car, which was at the pound, towed into Manhattan, and we all went down. But it was a suppression hearing. But the defendant, the judge, the lawyers, it wasn't a jury, but we all went down and we looked at the car. And, I think he pled after that.
Yeah,
anyway.
I've seen judges tell the court officer, all right, let's get in a van, let's grab the court reporter, and let's go check this out, in real time, in person.
But it's not a jury.
But I've never seen it done with a jury.
Yeah.
It's logistically very difficult.
Especially in New York. it's an all-day
Yeah.
event in New York. Okay, so we're going to go back in the courtroom. Court will resume in about 20, 25 minutes with continued live testimony. The medical examiner, William Zane, is on the stand. By the way, I've seen Zane testify in cases, and I looked him up quickly on the documents on my computer. I definitely saw him as the medical examiner who did the autopsy of Odin Lloyd in the Aaron Hernandez case. That was the first of the 2 trials of Aaron Hernandez. So he did that, but I know he did, I've seen him in person, and I wasn't at the trial, Aaron Hernandez's trial, but I've seen Zane in person. So I have to go back into other notes of mine. He's retired now. He was a medical examiner for 28 years. So he'll be continuing his direct examination when court resumes at about the top of the hour. Meanwhile, we're reviewing testimony from earlier today. It's the continuation of the police interview of Adrian Loya. So let's go back into the courtroom.
This stuff.
This is what has happened to you over the years, right? Because of this?
It's just so
She kind of fucked with you, right? She's betraying A, but then she puts on B for you. Is that what?
I guess I'm like, it's just like, it's the fear. So, even though like once around, it was already like very long.
Is that how you felt on the couch when she was in the bathroom?
Yes. Because I was thinking like I should just get up now and go. It's already bad. She's away, just put your back on, get out of here. But I'm shaky. It's very good when I check cold or stuff like that. But she comes back inside the living room and beelines it to the TV. She shuts it off. She goes to her bedroom.
She's saying?
No. She slams the door. So I'm like, okay, this is clear as day. Get the hell out of here. So I go to put my boots back on. So I put them on and I hear like a heavy thump. It sounds like a body. The first time I was like, she passed out. She just blacked out somehow. And it sounds soft like someone falling down, but I don't know how she shook her head, slammed her chin, smacked it on the floor or something. So I rush and I go up to the door. And I knock. And there's no response.
There's no response, you say?
No response. Like, I'm knocking because I should just open the door so I get okay or something. Let's see, in training, knock on the corner, stand in central whatever. Especially if you're a virgin there, you don't just go in there. So I thought she was in danger. And I can't go in because of these little rules. She opens the door, she just smiles, she's like, oh, fine. Like, okay, fine. We'll take her to bed, I'm gonna take off. And I'm saying that as I'm walking to the door, out the door. And I say, watch her behind. Without like, to go out loose and run out something. But she says, here saying no, it's a fur, like, turn back and look. And she has her hand on her hip. She has her hand up like this. She's smiling. She's doing this spectrum. She's like, come on, let's go. At the very, like, let's go to work. Let's go do this. Come on, let's go. Come on, let's do it. And just
She's still clothed?
yes, and she's just halfway. Like, I'm halfway through the door. She's just at the door of her bedroom. And she comes over. And she hooks my arm. And she pulls me to her bedroom. So she goes in there and I'm following her, but it's very, it's not natural, even if you're holding hands to kind of follow, it's a walk that isn't right. So I follow her and she stumbles. So I go to grab her essentially, which are the hips. And she leans back, and she puts her hand kind of like that, does like a scratch. And then sits my hand on her hips. She's like, all right, she puts her hand on top of my hand. And she's like, come on, let's get that, let's do it. And then she turns around and takes me to her bed, like sits me down, and I'm already, very good to like some kind of good shock. But she calls me back. She said like, "Come on, it's okay. Do it. Just don't tell her." And that's the other part was like, she knows what she's doing. Like, what happened after that? Or she's like, "Oh no, she's drunk. She didn't mean it." But her words were not slurred. They weren't. They were complete sentences in a way. She knew what she wanted and what she was doing. Come on, get. She never said any kind of let's have sex or any kind of slur or slang. She was always just, let's do it. One time, come sleep with me. But I just sat there on the edge of the bed and I was just shaking. I said, no. She's like, no, it's fine, you're drunk. I'm like, no. And then I finally, I don't know how long it was, it felt like a while. Stood up, I was like, I'm just gonna take off now. I'll go. And I just left her behind me. I don't know why I kept staying in the door. I really wanted to close the door and lock it. So I leave her bedroom, and she yells at me in a very angry tone, like, she said, like, what the fuck's your problem, man? Because it's kind of bad. And I know I did say it louder, and I was like, no. And then she yelled my name really loud, like doing terrible statements and like that. Stuff like, okay, I just go back in there, and she's trying to use harm herself or like move or something. She's still stay lying in bed, and come on, get in bed. Come on, I'm tired. And then I'll say, I'll sleep, spend the night, I'm gonna sleep on the couch. Good night, so I left the room and went to, I didn't go straight to the couch, but like a little kitchen table. And I sat there, knowing that it's a horrible, horrible situation, and you don't feel like to defend myself in the, not in a physical sense, but a moral sense. I went over there, I brought alcohol, saw this shit drunk, I went doing about face and just went away. I still went inside, told me to be all fine. But then she yells my name again, like, rush in there. She goes, oh, is it windy outside? It's windy. She goes, that's alright, and then she passed it out at that point. So then I just realized, okay, she's not harmless. It's the couch. It's kind of waving, curled up. And now it's like, I got there around 2 o'clock in the morning. And I stayed there till 6:30 or so.
You showed up at 2 o'clock in the morning with the DVDs and the vodka?
Yeah,
This is in Alaska? So it's daylight?
No, this was already been starting to get dark.
Alright.
But yeah, this was on Saturday, or late night college.
Where was Aaron?
She got activated for reservist duties. She was in federal Alaska. So, anyway, that was a special thing that she called me.
So, 6:30? What happened at 6:30?
She wakes up, goes to the bathroom, and she comes over to the bed, the couch, and she like telling me, hey, this is it's too small for you. Like, it's fine. And then I was there, kind of sat up, and she was down in her underwear, it was a t-shirt. But when she changes to that, she was passed out, she was in her hoodie still. So she changed in the bathroom, or sometime she'll be dead. But for some reason, I'm like, okay, she's talking to me again like normal. In this attire, this must mean it's fine. She's not asking to sleep with her anymore. she's now she's got say law and things like that. It's not a lot of fun. And she had to leave.
You left the apartment?
Yes, I left the place. And then after that, I didn't realize what really happened to me, and I slowly started to read. Where I know for a fact, this was on September 9th, 2012, August 30th, I weighed myself. Because I had weight issues in the first one. And my max was supposed to be 208, I was 205, and I've been hovering on that for a while. August 30th, I weighed myself, because October was and I was 205 still. Which really me out, because I was doing a lot of running, I was enjoying it, but I was running a lot, which I never really did. By the second week of October, I was down to 180, and I stopped looking at that.
How much you weigh now?
No, back to 221.
And you attribute your weight loss to what happened that
I
night?
couldn't eat for a good 2 weeks. Well, for a week I couldn't really eat. And then next week I was able to shut down applesauce, but I felt like this weird gag reflex really after that night. I was just trying to brush my teeth, and I started getting it, and tried to put it in my mouth, and I couldn't swallow.
Can I see a doctor?
Yeah, I went to see a medical after the 4th day of this.
Yeah.
Because I was now nauseous with no food, I guess. But every morning I wake up just gag, nothing to my mouth. And
What did the doctor attribute?
I told him about nauseous. He pressed around, and I was like, that hurts. I'm like, okay, I like something other, but then I realized from all the dry heaving, my abs are now sore from compression all the time. But then he asked me, like, when you, how often do you poop? I'm like, well, even on good health, it's like maybe twice a week at most. Very not very well, that stuff.
That's not good, Adrian.
And he's like, oh, well, here's what's wrong with you. You need some Metamucil. And I was like, okay.
So they thought your problem was
Somehow
your
that's
digestion.
So I got a day off because they told me to go shoot my brains out. I choked myself down, and all that came out was.
So were you really upset because of the fact that you knew that she had a relationship?
No, I was actually, once I actually found out she was in a gay relationship, I was actually, this is awesome. Like, once I found that, I was like, well, good for you, good for, getting married. First started as 2 women. Yeah, after that point, like, I had some connection to her, but it was more just like, okay, she's pretty and she's nice to me. It wasn't anything more than, this little.
But you were mainly upset because of the fact that knowing that she had that relationship and
Yeah.
So what upset you about the
this evening.
Yeah, that evening, because I'm having a hard time calling it sexual assault. To me, as a police officer.
That's what.
I was waiting for the part where you'd said, and then she, grabbed my penis.
Well,
That didn't happen,
that's the part where I knew the definition was rape is some kind of
penetration, yeah.
and sexual assault
Digitally or
is just the intention to do something. From how I understood it.
Well, did she actually touch you or physically?
She grabbed me, put me to the bed.
I know you said that she had grabbed you, and you said by the side of your head and maybe scratched you a little bit.
Yeah.
That, as far as physical touching goes,
She had never touched me before.
okay, but in that particular baby, any physical touching from her to you was hand by the side of your head, is that correct?
And her hand touched my hand. And
Did she have to touch you in your private area? Did you have to touch you in your private area?
so
That's what precipitated from September 9th, 2012 until now. That's kind of been fueling the fire.
right. Because when she got married, it was in January of 2012. As soon as she gets back to the island, they got married in New York. My car had it was down because
Same car?
in the same car there was a bad snowstorm in Kodiak, and then it rained, so it flooded the roads. it was my duty week, so I had to go in early to go shovel the snow from the shop. And so streets weren't plowed, and I kept on driving, thinking it wasn't just a puddle, it was actually working water, working farming. So I was down for like 3 months or so. So when she got back in January, this was beginning of January, and she came back, she's like, hey, Roy brought this for some drinks, and we got Anna. I can't go out to Anna people. So we all pick her up. And that's where I first met her. And then when I heard tell, she was a life person. She has side face when she first saw me.
You felt she didn't like you?
Yeah, I didn't understand it, but of course I've seen her.
Right.
But then I talked to her at the bar, and she was really nice. And then a couple weeks later, and previous to that, I couldn't receive postal in my apartment. Small town there. But Lisa could. So I'll send stuff to her place, and she always, I had some stuff I ordered for my birthday that year. And went to her house, and they're very large boxes. And you get to this car, and I didn't have my own car to pick it up. So she took her one of the boxes when to pick up that night. And then there's another box that was really large. And we had a TV. We were driving down for something. I'm like, hey, I know this wife, this guy here, and she's done a job or anything. She should be home, so I can pick up this box and bring a stupid sword up.
What?
It's a stupid sword, like a massive big fantasy sword.
Oh, a sword.
Yeah.
Is that all right?
No, it doesn't look like that. It's like a giant piece of stone.
Okay.
But it was, by the way, it's just large and good. So it was me and a couple guys from work. We drove by, and I went to the door, knocked, shut the door. It's like, hi, I'm like, hey, here's the box. It was right there. It's like, oh, here you go. Grabbed it. Thank you. And that was it. And then the guys went back to my place, opened it up, shut the room, and went back to the shop. The morale that day was we're watching a movie on base. And as soon as we pull in our DVD, we get out and start walking towards the shop. One of the guys there, Luke Little, in his Jeep, pulls up and cuts me off from my walking into the thing. And he just yells at me and said, what the fuck are you thinking? Going to Lisa's house. And I was like, I thought he was, yelling loud over Sadie's income. I'm like, oh, I just started picking this box. He's like, well, you don't go to her house like that. You ever see people, go by my house when I'm not there, so I'm like, kick her ass. I'm like, holy shit, they're like, no, I just went to pick up a box. And then Lisa pulled up behind her. And she jumps out of her car, and Lisa's not much of a tomboy, she's very feminine. She jumps out of the car, and she has her arms out wide. It's like, what's her problem, man?
To you?
Yeah. And she gets mad, she says, man. I'm like, oh, I picked the box and told me yes. And she says, well, let me see Carl walk up and around. Okay, she might put the box, and Anne was just sitting in the car the whole time, staring at me.
This is February 2012, before.
Yeah, well, January 2012. Before, this is the first thing that ever happened. The first real thing. Because before that, me and Lisa was brothers. I go inside, and one of the guys said, what the hell did you do with it? And I just went to go pick up his box. Like, I don't know, Lisa and the wife came in, and they said, just went over there on the house, and then barged me. Like, no, I knocked on the door, waited. Didn't see inside, the door opened, she came in, box and on the up. And she's like, oh, I don't know that anyway. Just watch out with them. So I thought that's the first I was going to get in trouble. The Coast Guard could now say whatever they want. I think they had 2 witnesses with me. But, like that way was we were doing I've done recently, it's a group or something. So it really was, I'll just pick it up all the time. And so I stayed away from her. I think she was really mad at me. She invites me over for a Super Bowl that came that year, which is on my birthday. I told her, no, I'm not going to your house every time. And then she's like, why? Like, because you yelled at me. And so this like a couple days before that, and like, day up, he text me like saying, hey, your son died, you want to come over? No, I told him not going to your house. So that month we kind of okay, it wasn't anything bad. We were friends with him. I invited her over to, we had another morale day at work. I brought some video games, set up projectors, played games.
Is morale very low in the Coast Guard? Seems like you had a lot of them around there.
In Kodiak, there was.
I guess so.
Because for our shop, we had 2 months.
Oh, okay.
They wouldn't.
So I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
That's a weird thing that Morale stuff really comes up with. That's when I will be present.
Yeah, because you bring family members,
We should,
MWI.
but that was the other thing. No one ever brought those guys. Most of the time, it's one of the things everybody brought in. Anyways, like, so I set up a room, people come in and out, and I play games with them. They stayed in there the whole time. And I hadn't talked to them really since the bar night, basically, which was mid-January, early January. And they just hung out and out for the whole time. Felt good, I felt like, well, we're here, lazy. Then a couple weeks later, I went into I had a job at LawNewz. These 2 guys who were working the job are leaving because they're transferring out. They saw some time. So there's Lisa, Luke Little, and this guy Carl. Carl just got promoted. He was just trying to get to know the area for the whole job area. But Luke and Lisa, since Lisa arrived to the island, had only worked with Luke. And apparently Luke before nobody ever wanted to work with her. But then once Lisa came to the island in September, they were inseparable. They would come to work in the morning, grab a GB, and were gone until they were working with her. So everybody's like always saying something back and wouldn't do anything. But they always said, oh, we should separate them, So here's my chance to shine a little bit. So I was like, okay, here's what we do. Like, Lisa, get with the 2 guys, get with that project, learn about it, go work with somebody else. Carl, get with Luke, because Luke is a very good IT guy. He knows his stuff. Carl, get with him, so he learns his stuff. And then next, we switch around. After I said it, Carl was like, okay, so find somebody's telling to do something, not just tossing stuff. He's like, oh, yeah. Luke is kind of whatever. Lisa immediately talked back saying, like, what's your problem? Like, why are you separating us? Why are you such a hater? I'm just telling you, work with these guys. If I want all the dogs to around, I want these 2 guys finish this project, take off and down, and no one knows what he did.
Welcome back, everybody. We're going to take a brief pause from our review of testimony from earlier today just to bring a little bit of analysis in before Ken Belkin takes off and before court resumes, hopefully in just a couple of minutes. So, Ken, my whole thing with this case is, look, this guy is trying to claim that he set this whole rampage up because he claims he was the victim of a sexual assault or a sexual attack. He goes back and forth between using those words, but he tends to use the first word a lot more than the second. The first set of words more than the second set of words. But we've heard him in this interrogation video describe what was happening more than once, and I do not see any evidence that there was in any way a sexual assault or a sexual attack. At a minimum, maybe what we had was some kind of like drunken flirtatious thing going on, okay? But I'm just looking at this saying he is drastically over-exaggerating what he claims to have been the victim of.
I mean, even if he isn't drastically over-exaggerating, this certainly is a drastic overreaction. It's not like he committed this murder in the heat of the moment in some sort of weird self-defense. This is some time after this alleged incident occurred.
And he said he started planning it in 2013. The crime was committed in the very beginning of 2015.
Yeah, it's bizarre. I mean, his 250-page manuscript, I mean, you gotta applaud the guy for being diligent enough to pump out a 250-page manuscript. But, you know, this whole thing is just totally out of control.
Well, I mean, everybody agrees with that, I think, at a threshold minimum. The question is whether it's going to get him to this defense of, you know, not guilty by reason of mental disease or defect. And in Massachusetts, it's interesting that the state has to prove that he's not suffering from a mental disease or defect. He doesn't have any burden of proving it. Once he raises the defense, they have to ride over the top of it.
Look, the only mental health issue that the defense has brought up is that this guy might be on the autism spectrum, he might suffer from Asperger's. These are not conditions that are going to skew someone's perception of reality to the point where they can't tell the difference between right and wrong, and they can't appreciate that taking a human life is wrong. This is not paranoid schizophrenia. He was not suffering under any, you know, delusions or paranoid hallucinations.
Oftentimes we say not guilty by reason of insanity, and people think, oh, well, if he sounds like he's crazy, then that's the defense, it fits, he goes into a mental institution instead of into a prison. Okay, but that's not really what the defense is. Not guilty by insanity or not guilty by mental disease or defect is just a legal question as to whether or not the person sitting in the defendant's chair knows right from wrong.
Yeah, if he can appreciate, if by way of mental health defect or mental health disease, he cannot discern between right and wrong. You know, look, people do crazy things all the time. It doesn't mean that they're not guilty by reason of insanity.
Well, I think that he lost the case for himself in the interrogation when he said that he thought the police were going to show up and shoot him and kill him.
Yeah, it was part of
Now,
the plan.
if you know the police are going to show up and shoot and kill you, you know what you're doing is wrong.
Yeah.
Police tend to not shoot people unless they're doing something wrong. I mean,
Well,
I know that there's been a couple
no.
of cases of crazy cops out there, but, you know, as a general matter,
Look,
you know,
I think there are a lot of instances where police officers inappropriately deploy their firearms and shoot civilians. That's my opinion, and I think it's beyond question in my mind.
well,
But
there are. I will concede that there are cases, but
Yeah, of
generally
course.
speaking, if you say you're going to go shoot people, and then you assume that the police are going to show up and shoot you,
it's because you know that what you're doing is
wrong,
Is
exactly.
going to bring law enforcement down on you, and I think you hit the nail on the head. I think that really does lose the case for the defense.
But that's what he said in the interrogation, and I keyed in on that yesterday, and I'm just like, okay, in my opinion, this should be a pretty slam dunk victory
Yeah,
for
total
the
slam dunk.
prosecution, all the way across the board, all 30 separate counts on a dozen different charges.
I told Jesse Weber yesterday that if they don't get, I'd bet my right arm that they're going to get a murder conviction here on this guy. I would be so shocked if they are able to successfully deploy the insanity defense here.
Because the only way that they can deploy it successfully is to just completely confuse the jury as to what the law actually says.
Yeah, and I don't see this defense attorney, you know, he's doing the best he can with a really terrible set of facts. I don't see him being that savvy that he's going to pull the wool over the eyes of this jury.
I don't think so either. I think the defense attorney is doing a great job.
Yeah.
He seems like he's very, very competent. I don't want to in any way question his skill or competency, but I said yesterday he's trying to play poker and the only card he's got is a joker.
Yeah,
You know, I mean,
exactly.
he doesn't have anything left to play. This interrogation of the defendant is just so thorough, and the other evidence corroborates
Yeah,
it.
you've got the GoPro video camera footage. You've got this 250-page manuscript. I mean, you know, maybe he is on the spectrum that he had the focus to be able to sit down and write 250
I don't know, Ken.
pages.
I mean, I think you should write a 250-page appeals court brief here sometime. You know,
I
just
don't
for
know that I
fun.
have that attention span to do that.
Try, you know. I mean, I'll look forward to that at the. I want it first thing Tuesday morning. There's your holiday weekend homework assignment from LawNewz.
Well, looks like I won't be hitting the beach.
So, well, I know you need to hit the road, Ken. Good to see you again
Good to
for
see you
this
again, Aaron.
brief moment that we had here together today.
Have a great weekend.
All right, you too.